right, this video is over direct variation, joint variation, and inverse variation. Okay, a variation is a special relationship between variables. Direct variation is y equals kx, and that just means that y is directly proportional to x. K is the constant of variation. Joint variation is y equals kxz. That means that y varies jointly as x and z. So this is talking about a three-dimensional plane where you have the y-axis, x-axis, and z-axis. Inverse variation is y equals k divided by x, and y is inversely proportional to x. Okay, so in the past, you've learned about direct variation and inverse variation, so the new one here is joint variation. So it says, determine whether the equation represents a direct, joint, or inverse variation. Identify the constant of variation. So to determine that, you always need to get it into y equals format first before you can figure out which one it's going to be. Okay, so number one, it's already in y equals format. This is y equals 2x, so this is going to be direct variation, so you just say direct. And then the k, our constant of variation, is going to be 2. So k equals 2. Number two, it's already in y equals. This is going to be inverse. And our k is going to equal 24. Number three, it's in y equals. This is going to be joint. And our k is going to be 5. For number four, we need to get it into y equals format. So to do that, we've got to divide both sides by 3. Okay, so that is the same thing as saying y equals 1/3 x, which is going to be direct. And our k is going to be 1/3. For number 5, to get y by itself, we've got to divide both sides by x. So that's y equals 36 over x, which is going to be inverse. And our k is going to equal 36. Okay, for number 6, to get rid of the 4/3, you can't divide by a fraction, so instead we have to multiply by the reciprocal. So we're multiplying by 3/4, which turns that into y equals 3/4 xz, which is going to be joint. And our k is 3/4. For number 7, to get y by itself, you've got to multiply both sides by x. So that turns into y equals 2/5 x, which is going to be direct. And our k is going to be 2/5. For number 8, this isn't in a y equals format, but we can tell that this is going to be an area formula. So we're trying to get the a by itself. So to do that, you divide both sides by 2, which is area equals, since there's two variables over here, we're probably talking about joint. And so this dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying times 1/2. So it's 1/2 base times height, which is actually the formula for area of a triangle. Okay, so this is going to be joint. And our k is going to be 1/2. Okay, so some direct variation examples. So it says if y is directly proportional to x and y equals 28 when x equals 7, find x when y equals 52. Okay, so to find this, you're going to have to set it up as a proportion. So to find the constant of variation, if we were to rearrange this up here, if we were trying to solve for what the k is, you would divide both sides by x. So the constant of variation, our k, equals y divided by x. So our proportion is y over x equals y over x. Okay, so this particular one would be 28 over 7 equals 52 over x. And then you're just solving for the x. So 7 times 52 is 364, and 28 times x is 28x. So we have 28x equals 364. Okay, then you have to divide both sides by 28 to solve, and you'll get that x equals. All right, so at number 10, so it says if r is directly proportional to the square of s and r equals 72 when s equals 12, find r when s equals 8. So R is directly proportional to S squared. So that means we have R over S squared equals R over S squared. So that would be 72 over, well, 12 squared is 144. And that equals, it asks us to find R when S equals 8, which is 64. Okay, so then from there you want to solve it. So you have 144R. And you have 72 times 64, which is 4,608. Divide both sides by 144, and you get that R equals 32. Okay. All right, on this next one, it says the dollar amount D that Megan earns varies directly with the number of hours H that she works. In her last paycheck, she earned $148.50 working 18 hours. If her next paycheck is $90.75, how many hours did she work? Okay, so the amount D is directly proportional with the number of hours that she works. So D over H equals D over H. So that would be 148.50 over 18 equals 90.75 over H. Okay, so that's 148.50H equals 90.75 times 18 is $1,633.50. Divide both sides by 148.50 and you should get 11 hours. Is going to be our H. Okay, all right, let's flip over to the other side. So let's talk about joint variation examples. So it says if Y varies jointly with X and Z and Y equals 48 when X equals 8 and Z equals 15, find Y when X equals 14 and Z equals 20. Okay, so this is Y over XZ equals Y over XZ. Okay, so on this first one, it would be 48 is over 8 times 15. And then we're trying to find Y when you have 14 times 20. Okay, so 48 times 14 times 20. Okay, and then on this other side, you have 8 times 15, which is 120 times Y. So we have 120Y equals 13,440. Okay, divide both sides by 120, and you get that Y equals 112. That's going to be the answer. Okay, on this other one, it says if P varies jointly as Q and the cube of R, and P equals 270 when Q equals 6 and R equals 3. Find P when Q equals 3 and R equals 5. Okay, so P varies jointly. So P is over Q and the cube of R, so R cubed. Okay, equals P over Q R cubed. Okay, so our P here is 270. It's over 6 times the cube of 3. So 3 cubed is 27. So 27 equals, finds P. So we're looking for a P when Q equals 3 and R equals 5. So 5 cubed is 125. Okay, so then solving this right here. So you have 270 times 3 times 125, and over here you have 6 times 27 times P. Okay, so it's going to turn into 162P equals 101,250. And then divide both sides by 162, and your P should equal 625. Okay, 14, it says for Tom's savings account, the interest earned varies jointly with the principal and amount of time in years since opening the account. If Tom opened the account 3 years ago with $1,200 and earned $144 in interest, how much interest will he have earned 8 years after opening the account? Okay, so it says for Tom's savings account, the interest earned varies. So interest is on top. Okay, so it's 144. With the principal and amount of time in years. Okay, so the amount of time was 3 and the principal was 1,200. So it's 3 times 1,200 equals. Says how much interest will he have earned? So we're looking for the interest. We'll just put X for that. If he opened his account 8 years ago. Okay, so well the principal was still 1,200 times 8. Okay, so we're looking for the interest in that. So you have 3 times 1,200 times X, which is going to be 3,600 X. And then over here you have 144 times 1,200 times 8, which is going to be 1,382,400. Divide both sides by 3,600 and you'll get that X equals $384 is how much interest that he'll have after 8 years. Okay, the next part is inverse variation. So it says if y is inversely proportional to x and y equals 7.5 when x equals 8, find x when y equals 5. Okay, so the original function for inverse function is y equals k divided by x. So if you're trying to find out what the constant of variation is, then you'd have to multiply both sides by x, which means that our k equals x times y. So when we're doing these right here, it's x times y equals x times y. Okay, so this is going to be 8 times 7.5 equals, we're looking for x, and so it's equals 5 times x. Okay, so 8 times 7.5 is 60 equals 5x. Divide both sides by 5 and x equals 12. If m is inversely proportional to the square root of n and m equals 27 when n equals 16, find m when n equals 64. Okay, so this is going to be 27 times 16 equals 64 n. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. It says square root of n. So the square root of n is 4. Sorry, I missed that part. The square root of n is 4, and our square root of 64 is going to be 8. So this should be 8m. Okay, so 27 times 4 equals 8m. And 27 times 4 is 108 equals 8m. So then divide both sides by 8, and you get m equals 13.5. Okay, this next one, it says the time it takes Adam to drive to Disney World varies inversely with his average rate of speed. If it takes Adam 10.8 hours at an average speed of 50 miles per hour, how long would it take him at an average speed of 60 miles per hour? Okay, so the time it takes varies inversely with his average rate of speed. It takes Adam 10.8 hours. Okay, so 10.8 at 50 miles per hour. So 50 equals how long would it take? So we're trying to find x there at an average speed of 60. So 60 times x. Okay, so 10.8 times 50 is 540 equals 60x. Divide both sides by 60 and you get x equals 9 hours. Okay, this next part is a combined variation. A combined variation is a relationship that contains both direct and inverse variation. Okay, so it says y varies directly as x and inversely as z. Okay, so y varies directly as x. Okay, so the top part's going to be direct variation there, or you're going to have kx, but then it inversely as z. So inversely just means it's going to be division. So that means it's going to be y equals kx over z. Okay, p varies inversely with q squared and directly with r cubed. Okay, so we have p equals, and it's going to be inversely with q squared, which means that that's going to be in the bottom, and then directly with r cubed, which means that's going to be in the top. So it's kr cubed divided by q squared. 20, A varies directly as B and inversely as C. Okay, so A equals as directly as B, so it's KB, and inversely as C. If A equals 16, so we have 16, when B equals 12 and C equals 6. Okay, so we have B is 12 and C is 6. Find A when B equals 28 and C equals 4. Okay, well, to do that first, we need to find out what our K is going to be here. Okay, so we have, let's start by getting rid of the denominator here. So we're going to multiply both sides by 6. So 6 times 16 is 96 equals 12K. Then divide both sides by 12 and K is going to equal 8. Okay, so then if we're trying to find A when we have our K is 8, we have our B is 28, and we have our C is 4. So 8 times 28 and then divided by 4, so our A is going to equal 56. Okay. All right. There is another note sheet that I do want to sum up real quick. It kind of just goes over everything real quick. It's just this quick little graphic organizer. So let's talk about that to finish up our notes. There you go. Okay, so direct variation equation is y equals kx. An example of this would be y equals 4x. The graph of this, it will always go through the origin. Okay, that's how you know it's direct variation. It's going to be linear. It's going to be a straight line that's always going to go through the origin. And so for this example right here, it has a slope of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, if y varies directly as x and y equals 10 when x equals 14, find the constant and write an equation to represent the relationship. All right, so this is the graph of the linear function or the direct variation function. An example, it says if y varies directly as x and y equals 10 when x equals 14, find the constant, which is your k, and write an equation to represent the relationship. Okay, so we are looking for y equals kx. Okay, so it says to find the constant, you just do 10 divided by 14. Okay, or if you wanted to plug it in like this, you could say 10 equals k 14 to find out what it is, and then you're going to end up dividing right here anyways, which is 10 divided by 14. Okay, and so that's going to be, it's going to simplify down to 5 over 7. So our k equals 5 over 7. So our equation is y equals 5 over 7x. Okay, for inverse variation, it's y equals k divided by x. An example of that's y equals 4 over x. This is a reciprocal function. Okay, inverse and reciprocal mean the same thing. If you want to get your points, you can do that by typing that in on your calculator and going to your table. And it's going to be something kind of like this. And then you're going to have the same thing kind of over here. So it's going to look something like that. Okay, an example of this, it says if y varies inversely as x and y equals 4 when x equals 12, find the constant and write an equation to represent the relationship. Well, the equation for this is y equals k over x. Okay, so that is 4 equals k over 12. So to find k, you multiply both sides by 12. I can write here. Then that is, our k is going to equal 48. So our equation is y equals 48 divided by x. Okay, the next one is joint variation. This is y equals k times x times z. So y equals 4xz. We're not going to graph this because you can't graph it on a coordinate plane like that. So it says if y varies jointly as x and z and y equals 42 when x equals 9 and z equals 7, find the constant of variation and write an equation to represent the relationship. Okay, so this equation is y equals kxz. So if we plug our numbers in, we have 42 equals k times 9 times 7. Okay, so that is 42 equals 63k. Then divide both sides by 63. And our k is going to simplify down to 2/3. So this would be y equals 2/3 xz. Okay, for a combined variation, it says, what is it? It's a combination of direct and inverse variation. So an example, it says, if P varies directly with Q squared and inversely with R, and P equals 38.4 when Q equals 8 and R equals 5, find the constant of variation and write an equation to represent the relationship. So if P varies directly with Q squared, it says KQ squared, and inversely with R, so it's over R. Okay, then we're going to plug our information in. So we have 38.4 equals K. We have Q squared, which is 64. And it's over 5. Okay, so first we want to multiply both sides by 5. So 5 times 38.4 is 192 equals 64K. Divide both sides by 64. And your k is going to equal 3. Okay, so that means that our equation here is going to be P equals 3q squared over R. So we have this and we have this. Okay, so that sums up direct variation, inverse variation, and joint variation.